Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar, Instill the Hospitality Culture in Your Practice to Enhance Your Patient's Experience, presented by Karen Sugar, Certified Interior Designer, Space Planner, and Facility Designer with over 40 years experience in healthcare design. Karen also provides design work all over the country. Please be aware that there will be a question and answer portion at the end of today's webinar. Please type your questions in the question box located on the right of your screen, and they will be answered in the order received. Additionally, if you would like a copy of the presentation slides to print and take notes on during the presentation, please find them to the right of your screen in the handouts section. They will also be emailed to all participants following completion of today's webinar, as well as a recorded version will be available on the website for members only. Again, we would like to thank you for attending, and I will now turn things over to Karen.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Let's talk about why we would wish to do this. What we're going to explore today will be what we want to do to make our patients love us, come to us, feel loyal to us, and enhance their experience so that they would never think to look at another practice. So what will create the most welcoming environment includes a lot of the things listed, how we want to protect our patients, give them a safe space to enter, respect their privacy with HIPAA, and at the same time improve our bottom line because it's the right thing to do and it benefits everyone. When trying to get our patients to choose our practice to be their doctor, we tell them what we do and how we do it. But all medical practices do many of the same things. We schedule appointments, we welcome people in, we take vitals, we talk to our patients, we examine them to see if they have any health issues, we take tests and report back. Does this assure that they'll want our practice to be their doctor? Not necessarily. So what sets us apart from all other practices? Inspired leaders think differently. Let's talk about that again. Inspired leaders think differently. Here's how we might like our practice to be regarded. We believe in giving our patients the benefit of the most innovative research in the healthcare industry. We make certain our providers are at the top of their game in knowing about new research. We include our patients in those we care about most. We show that to our patients every day by how we treat them, how we investigate test results, what innovative options are there for us to use to grant our patients the best possible health so that they can live their life the best way possible. We do all we can to make certain that the office we present as our home is pristine. We invite our patients to the best possible place to come see us because we care about them. They're our family. It's truly a partnership between us, the owners and practice managers, and our staff. So let me tell you a story about partnership. In the olden days in Jerusalem, Jesus decided he needed a new robe. He stopped in to see Reuben, who he knew made clothes, and asked him to make a new robe. Reuben was impressed that Jesus came to see him and said, "It'll be ready in 3 days. Come back then." Jesus came back, loved the new robe Reuben had made for him, and said, "What do I owe you?" Reuben said, "I'll make you a deal. The robe is on me, no charge. All I ask is that in your travels, when you talk to people, you tell them who made it for you." Months later, Jesus found himself back in Jerusalem And as he went to stop in to see Reuben and see how he was doing, he found a crowd of people lined up waiting to get into Reuben's shop. "Reuben, you're so successful. I'm thrilled," Reuben said. "You know, we really should form a partnership. We should call it Reuben and Jesus, or maybe Jesus and Reuben." So they formed a partnership that worked beautifully, and it was so successful that it lasted throughout the centuries and still exists to this day. We all want our partnerships to last as long as Jesus and Reuben's has. So what did they call it? Lord and Taylor. People won't come to us because of what we do. They'll come to us because of why we do it. So let's create the most welcoming environment for our patients. Patients are often frightened to visit their doctor. In fact, an online survey among just under 1,200 U.S. males 18 and older, Cleveland Clinic found that 72% of men would rather do household chores like cleaning the bathroom or mowing the lawn rather than go to the doctor. Even for the men who take their health care more seriously, some are holding back. 20% of these men admitted that they hadn't been completely honest with their doctor before. They're afraid for a myriad of reasons, which we all know. They think they can't find a doctor they can trust, or it's inconvenient to take off work, or they don't want to hear that they'll have to modify their diet to take off some weight. Or maybe a prostate exam is uncomfortable. They can research their ailments online, or they know something's wrong and they aren't ready to face the diagnosis. But once they make the decision and the effort to come, they appreciate a clean, open, welcoming, relaxing atmosphere, just as they admire a hotel's pristine setting. This can be achieved whether the practice chooses to renovate in place, update finishes and furniture, or actually make a move to a new location. Studies have shown that when owners and providers make significant improvements to their suites, adding calming elements and design, patient satisfaction increases dramatically. People are impressed when their practice cares enough about them to update their space and provide a pleasant, peaceful environment for them to visit, especially when so many people fear or just hate going to see their doctor. So let's take a look at our patient's first impression. What do they see when they enter? Is the space bright and clean? Well organized? Is the furniture fresh, or is it worn and stained? Are the colors coordinated and appropriate for this type of practice? Is the space attractive, neat, clean, organized, color coordinated? Does it seem current, or does it look like it's been there for 10 or 15 years without an update? Is there good lighting, a variety of textures? Is there artwork? Are the magazines current, or have they been there for more than a year? I know we've all seen that. Is it easy to locate the check-in desk? Does the greeter acknowledge you when you enter? Or does she continue doing the paperwork that's on her desk without even looking up and acknowledging your presence? Think about how you would like to be greeted at a Marriott hotel. Would you even stand for being ignored? So, in order to enhance our patient's experience, are you invited to meet with your provider in a consult room, especially for your first visit, or later for a case presentation? While many practices may not have consultation rooms fitted out like these, the realization that people need privacy for some frank discussions calms people's nerves, especially if the discussion is about a serious illness, a prognosis, or the need for a procedure whose description is hard to swallow. Does your MA accompany your patients to the exam room, take vitals, explain what they're doing, and ask if the patient has any concerns they can share? People's fears can often be allayed by the soothing voice and mannerisms of the astute MA. Train your MAs as the quintessential representatives of the practice. Have them be the ones who carry on the welcoming attitudes of all of the staff. One of my favorites, line of sight. Have patients ever been walked down a corridor only to see someone who's in a gown on an exam table where the door was left partially open? Thank goodness, not often. But when it comes to line of sight, I know an office where the practice spent a considerable amount of money. They spent it in their reception area, and directly behind the reception desk was a door that led to their storeroom, which didn't look much different than this. According to a 2018 MGMA stat poll, 59% of healthcare organizations invested in technology to improve patient engagement in the previous year. It's time to do the same thing for our physical plant. It's time to make sure that our staff and their interactions with patients ensure that our patients have their best experience when visiting. Be introspective. Is your furniture beyond its usefulness? Mismatched, worn out? This is obviously not a waiting room. It's a day room in a senior care facility, but even so, not really what you would want to aspire to. And here's the same room after a reasonably modest update. Where would you rather sit with your family if you were a senior? Let's look at waiting room furniture. Selecting the most appropriate furniture for your waiting room will give everyone the life cycle, the wear that we need. Many people don't want to sit immediately next to a stranger, so arms between seats, especially if the seating is modular, could be in order. If we have patients that can be incontinent or are generally hard on furniture, we may want to consider some specialty upholsteries, either Krypton, which is fabric that's impervious to liquid. It's infused with vinyl-type product behind the fibers, or non-woven upholstery, which we used to call vinyl, that now can be washed clean of ballpoint pen ink. Here we see 3 different types of chairs, all fabricated especially for waiting rooms. The one on the left is a bariatric chair. Looks kind of like a chair and a half. It is not a settee. A settee is a small love seat that's meant for 2 people to sit in. But if you hope to use a settee to hold a morbidly obese patient, you're going to be in for a nasty surprise and possibly a liability issue. A settee will not hold these individuals. Bariatric chairs are lined in steel like this one. You can see the steel slats, and the wood joints are secured with steel anchors. The middle chair, sitting here, is higher than a regular chair. It's called a hip chair, mostly for people with hip problems and often seen in orthopedic practices. The third chair is a normal, commercially built chair, structurally sound to take the use and abuse patients can give it day after day, upholstered in Krypton for the back and a non-woven fiber for the seat. Just as in hotels, the furniture that's installed is appropriate for the guests that are anticipated to visit. Remember, residential grade furniture is not made to take the use and abuse that your visitors will give it. How many hotels have you seen without artwork of some kind? Artwork, which can come in many forms, enhances your practice, improves the interior, and gives patients something to look at, study, and enjoy while they wait. Artwork can be 2-dimensional, murals, original art, just poster art, sculpture, photography, or architectural room dividers. But no matter what the medium, Artwork will warm the interiors and often help people relax. The biophilia hypothesis suggests in research done by the people named at the bottom of the slide that humans possess an innate tendency to seek connections with nature and other forms of life. Because we spend so much of our day indoors, it's a healthful accomplishment to bring the outside in. People's neurological reactions to biophilic environments have a positive physiological effect, measurable by medical sensors for elements such as heart rate, skin temperature, stress level, increase in self-esteem, and it's obvious overall health of those who live near forests and green spaces is statistically better than those who live most of their lives indoors. This is why both hotels and hospitals are installing waterfalls in public areas, atria, and adding living green walls like this one shown here. These are often just plants set in pots on a 45-degree angle so they can be watered and still support growth. But biophilic design can be as simple and as inexpensive as adding a few potted plants to a space. Now for the basics of facilities design and management, which works equally well for hotels and medical facilities. As healthcare professionals, we need to be concerned with cleanliness and organization. Have we all seen reception desks that look like this? If so, how can we present a professional image to patients? Would your opinion change if a Hilton hotel had their concierge or registration desk looking anything like this? As we're careful enough to clean our bathrooms often enough that they instill a pristine atmosphere for every patient, we want to do that for our patients, locate hand sanitizers in strategic places for both patients as well as providers. Now that the cost of instilling sinks in every exam room has become often prohibitively expensive, let's instill in our culture, making sure that our patients see our providers clean their hands with hand sanitizer before they come to examine them. To take best care of our patients, let's not let them wander. Too many large practices have a labyrinth of hallways, and their patients can't find which way to go. The simplest arrangement for the basic practice is one of two standards. Either people go in and come back out using the same corridors, such as this, or they can walk in a loop, which allows patients to exit at the checkout counter. While this last layout may depend more on a larger suite, it's an efficient means of moving through the space, and there's rarely confusion. Checking in at the check-in desk, running through the process, and checking out at a private checkout area. Wayfinding signage is critical as your practice grows. To help patients find their way out, find their way to the doctor's office, if follow-up is required, or to locate a waiting room or a restroom. Lighting is the key to comfort. Whether we choose fluorescent or other light sources we've used for decades, or whether we elect to update to LEDs, lighting can enhance the workplace and particularly the medical practice to great advantage. Lighting is available in a variety of styles called temperatures. To the left, we see warm white, most used in residential settings, bars, or dinner restaurants for warmth or drama. Toward the center is our optimal office lighting. Balanced light with good color rendition, appropriate so providers can see true skin color or if patients are jaundiced. As we get closer to the right, these cool white lights are often available in Home Depot, which are too cool for a pleasant office setting or for most people to feel comfortable. Yes, it seems to be backward. The higher the temperature number, the cooler the light appears. Compare the use of a variety of light sources in this slide to see which light we might be most comfortable in for our practice. Many people are particularly sensitive to artificial light traditionally in offices. Traditionally in offices, there are 2x4 recessed ceiling lights that produce a terrible glare in computer screens. So many people either shield the light from their eyes or they climb up on their desks to unscrew the tubes from the fixtures. And although this is an exaggeration, it seems obvious the lighting that's too cool, which tends to glow blue or green, tires people out. And this, as a cartoon, clearly proper lighting is critical to enhance the most attractive suites and make both staff and patients very comfortable. Now we go on to branding. This should be important to all of us because it's what we leave behind. It's what people say about us after their visit is over and they've left the office. It can help patients feel comfortable if they visit a remote office because it looks familiar and isn't as frightening. How would we know we're at a McDonald's if the logo and menu and basic layout weren't the same in each location? It's also an easy way of thanking our patients for continuing to come to the place they feel most comfortable visiting. Do all practice locations have to be identical? Certainly not. But a few elements that remind people that this is our practice, they'll love visiting because it's comforting. Okay. Now, for the respect that we need to give our patients with ADA compliance. As part of the hospitality culture, we never cut corners. Would we expect to walk into a Four Seasons and have to turn sideways to get into a toilet stall because it's not ADA compliant? No, of course not. We abide by all the rules. We take the best care of our patients by making certain they're protected. ADA isn't only about wheelchair-bound patients. It's about people with hearing loss, loss of sight, and a myriad of other ailments that may make their ability to maneuver through a space more difficult for them. If many of our patients are autistic, we'd be more likely to have soft music playing and have our staff keep their voices down. Let's pay attention to our patients and their ailments so that they feel respected and cared for. By now, most people know that check-in counters like this one are more likely to be lowered for wheelchair-bound patients, but there are many other restrictions that designers or planners will be able to introduce to abide by the set of ADA guidelines. It's a matter of some education, some exposure, and the assistance of a savvy planner to modify designs to abide by ADA guidelines. Wheelchair-bound people are likely to burn their knees on the sink trap drainage lines below the sinks if they are not insulated, which is why we see lots covered in white plastic padded covers. Wheelchair-bound people have to be able to roll up to sinks in the staff lounge, requiring modification to a sink-based cabinet. And they can't maneuver through a doorway such as this one, where the doorknob is so close to the edge that their wheelchair cannot get close enough. Doorknobs by themselves are no longer used in commercial use because people with arthritis or Parkinson's disease would never be able to hold the knobs tightly enough to turn them. Blind people could hit their heads on sconces that extend farther from the wall than 4 inches. These are only a few of the items that could require updating in an office whose last renovation was a few too many years ago. And the building code continues to change, forcing tenants and owners to be aware of how to be good corporate citizens. In fact, in a renovation project, 20% of the budget must be allocated to improve some form of ADA compliance. We respect our patients with HIPAA. Clearly, I'm talking to the right audience. Some of these guidelines, while comical when it comes to signing people in, are challenging. There are lots of ways to comply, but today we're going to discuss HIPAA in a way that can improve its effectiveness throughout the physical space. Love those cartoons. Let's be as respectful as we can be to mind patients' privacy. Here we've created a 6-foot corridor between the check-in staff and the waiting room so that people aren't as likely to hear the private conversations that take place, either checking in, scheduling new appointments, or checking out. Ideally, checkout takes place behind the door that separates the front of the house and waiting room from the clinical area. The kindest way to handle difficult checkout or financial difficulties is to either invite the patients into the manager's office or to have a private meeting or consult room that serves this purpose. No one should be embarrassed because their discussion is overheard by those seated in the waiting room. And now for maintenance. It's a necessary evil. Whether it's for a hotel or an office, one of my favorite facilities topics, and I promise to only show you this one lovely slide. I'm sure you all have your own favorite situations that aggravate you. To treat our patients like family, we need to show them our best side, as all fine hotels do to their guests. We want to show that we care about their health, and we want to treat them with respect and receive the same in return. Here on the left, we have a carpet that's begun to buckle because of a number of typical reasons, creating a terrible tripping hazard and special areas that haven't been cleaned in much too long, like this light switch or the floor under a urinal. Regular maintenance is absolutely essential. Practices have an obligation to have a trustworthy cleaning service on contract to help us respect our staff and our patients. We need to do this for them, but even more so for ourselves. The ability to keep our spaces clean gets more challenging every year. Right now, healthcare is grappling with swapping out fabrics with non-woven materials that can be wiped down to remove bacteria. However, as the materials are developed, we've found that some break down due to their being cleaned with cleaners that kill bacteria, but prove to be so caustic that they break down the materials. It's up to us to ensure that the cleaning service we engage knows how to clean many of these materials. The bottom image is a fabric that was mistakenly cleaned with bleach. The upper image on the right is a poor version of polyurethane that's breaking down from being cleaned with cleaners that are so caustic that they're actually part of the problem. New products are being developed all the time, many that aren't made from petroleum products that won't support bacteria growth, can be cleaned with bleach. They pass all the fire resistance tests, and they can release ballpoint pen ink with simple cleaning. These have soft hand, they're stain resistant, cleanable. In many cases, they can upholster furniture with Velcro so that if the upholstery needs to be redone, it can be pulled out and redone on site. And intelligent decisions can mitigate serious maintenance and protect the earth. So how do we improve our bottom line? We take a look at a couple of items, and we'll only mention a few this time. Let's talk money. How often do we see hotels change their interiors, change the carpet, redo their guest rooms, or update their public bathrooms? They know that spending money earns them money. By switching from fluorescent lights to LEDs, we can save in several ways. Several power companies are still offering rebates on purchase of LED light fixtures, so whether we pay for the new lighting or our landlords pay for them, our energy costs will reduce by at least half. So whether we pay for the new lighting, our energy costs will be reduced, forgive me, by half again. In this spreadsheet, one office changed the lights from fluorescent to LED. They paid a little over $19,000 last year in energy costs alone, but after switching over, they paid less than $9,000, or a little bit more than $9,000, forgive me. This doesn't take into effect the savings on labor cost as well for people to come in, change out burnt light bulbs or tubes. Fluorescent tubes burn 20 to 34 hours depending upon how long they're left on every day. Their life is shorter, and when they're turned on more, they're turned on and off more and more. LED lamps produce the same amount of light but last 50,000 hours. That's 2.5 times as long as lighting that's left on all day. At approximately 10 hours a day, that means LED lamps will last over 19 years before they have to be changed. This is another favorite. Many owners are convinced that they can save money by choosing to purchase lower cost flooring. That makes sense until you look at the maintained costs. So I've highlighted a few of the materials that subacute care facilities might use. I'm assuming the cost of LVT or LVP, luxury vinyl tile or luxury vinyl planks, is somewhere between the first two that are highlighted in yellow. That's the new tile or plank that looks like stone or wood. Then there's carpet, and then there's VCT, vinyl composition tile. We all know vinyl composition tile. It's the 12 by 12 tiles that are in most individual bathrooms. This floor needs to be waxed. But once we consider waxing VCT a few times a year and stripping it once a year, as compared to a no-wax floor like LVP, the life cycle cost difference is obvious. It's half the cost. The upfront cost is higher, the maintained cost is considerably lower. If the practice plans to stay in the landlord's building for only a few years, I'd say save the money. But if we own our own building or plan to extend our lease over 10 years because our x-ray equipment, lead lining, phone service, computer service are prohibitively expensive to move, then let's reach for the savings if we can borrow the money at the outset or allow the landlord to amortize it over the length of the lease. Rounding the bend, we see that moving from traditional facilities management closer to hospitality management goes a long way to enhancing our patients' experience. The service culture allows us to be innovative in a marketable way, treat our patients like they hope to be treated at the finest hotel or resort, and we make them happy to return time and time again. And let's make sure that our staff loves being the heroes. The staff's performance will improve. Their attitudes will improve. They'll become the guest relations personnel. They'll take better care of our patients, better care of our suite, and they'll love us for giving them a wonderful place to work. All in all, this improves our practice's bottom line. So let's be inspired leaders who think differently. Show everyone why we excel, and the patients will tell all their friends. Be the heroes in our practice. Develop the people skills on your staff, not for you, but for them. Inspire them to be heroes and watch the change in their patients' experiences. Watch the change in their attitudes. Then our patients will love the experience of visiting our practice that much more. Remember, as Maya Angelou said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So absolutely, ask questions now. But if you email me, I will send you a wonderful video that's too long to include in this presentation, but will teach your staff how to be the hospitality heroes in your practice. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Karen. So now we can move on to the question and answer portion of today's presentation. If you have any questions, please type them on the question box located on the right of your screen. And while we wait for some questions to come through, Karen, is there anything else you'd like to add?
It's amazing how many people have to balance the cost of their new move with the maintained cost. Forgive me, I have lost my screen. From the beginning, and I am going to run through. Forgive me, ladies and gentlemen.
So we did have a question come through. What do you propose as defense when asking for these capital investments in a time where payer reimbursement is decreasing and overall costs are rising?
If the overall costs are rising, the best thing to do is to have your estimator or your general contractor or your designer put together a spreadsheet of initial costs versus the maintained costs. Some cases, people just don't have the money to spend at the outset. And if that's the case, then you do it in phases. But rather than use less expensive materials, choose only those you can afford, and then perhaps there will be a phase 2. It's not an easy answer, clearly.
And the next question we have is, if you can only do one thing in a tired office, what would you do first?
Make sure the furniture is comfortable. If you've ever sat in your own den at home and sat in a maybe tired, maybe not so tired sofa and realized that the seat is lower than the knees, you'll realize that it's harder to get up out of your sofa. And you would never want that to happen to your patients, just as you would never want elderly patients or perhaps infirm patients to change their clothes in an exam room and try to get up from an armless chair. Give them an arm. Give them the advantage of allowing them to be comfortable in your office. So I would say it's furniture.
That's a great tip. I never even thought of that. The next question is, what do you think of allowing or not allowing facial piercings and or visible tattoos on receptionists?
That's a tough one. Interestingly enough, I always thought that was absolutely taboo, but I'm in the wrong generation. And as you start to watch TV commercials, even the commercials that they paid $5.6 million for 30 seconds at halftime at the Super Bowl, some of the individuals in the commercials had facial piercings and tattoos. I would say that it's terribly subjective. It's a hard conversation to have, but you're going to have to maintain something that is in good taste. And I'm not sure if you can make it subjective within the entire staff, because a lot of the staff will be younger, but clearly good taste is critical. And everybody can choose their own. If you decide that it's taboo, then it's taboo, and the people will have to find work elsewhere.
Thank you. And right now we have no further questions. We could give a couple more seconds for any last minute ones to come through.
These are all amazing questions. Absolutely amazing. And sometimes, if your furniture is in reasonably good shape, sometimes you will be amazed from looking at the difference between a poor quality light and a better quality light. All too many spaces that we walk in, you'll stand in a corridor and you'll look down the corridor One light looks pink, the next light looks white, the next light looks blue, the next light looks green. Ideally, you want the people who are replacing your lighting to make sure that the temperature of all of the lamps are identical.
Thank you. We did have another question come through. How about staff that are so into social media and web browsing that patients are left waiting?
Not acceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. I even know people who have turned off or done the adult connections for the children. They have made it impossible for people to go online. Now, that's not going to stop them from using their phones, but clearly they can be written up, or you can make it a rule that that's just not acceptable. This is a service business. People are expecting good service and hoping that they will be treated with great respect. You want these people to be your family. It's those people who are going to tell their friends and relatives that they should come to your office. If you've got staff that isn't paying attention, they don't belong there.
Thank you. The next question is, are there any websites that you would recommend to look for new medical office furniture?
That is a tough one. I would, instead of looking online, I would suggest that you deal with your designer who is savvy about furniture that is most appropriate for for the kind of medical practice you have. Obviously, we would be using furniture differently for those who are in a pediatric practice, those who are in an orthopedic practice, those who are in a psychological or psychiatric practice, and those who are in a surgical practice. I would suggest you look carefully or call me directly and I can help you individually.
Okay, the next question is, what do you think of dual monitors at a reception that create a physical barrier but help the receptionists do their jobs more efficiently and thus move patients along quicker?
There are clearly better ways to do it. If the receptionist is able to see the entire screen in a smaller screen, I would suggest the screen be sufficiently lower or smaller so that their visibility is not barred from the visitor. On the other hand, they can put their screens on the side so that the front of their desk is clear. Or I have even seen in HIPAA situations where the screen is buried inside the desk where they can see the screen on a 45-degree angle through a glass worktop. But clearly, you definitely don't want people not to be able to see the receptionist or the receptionist to see their visitors.
Okay, so we have no further questions, and if there's no other questions, then we can wrap this up. Thank you, Karen, for your presentations.
Thank you, and please do email me. I will send you a video that you will just love, and it'll instill in your staff the essence of what it means to be a hero.
Thank you. And then once again, the presentation slides will be emailed to all participants and will be available for members only on our website, as well as we will be sending you a quick survey for your feedback as that is important to us. And once again, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to Karen directly. Thank you everyone for attending, and I hope you all have a great day.